I thought about telling a carpentry joke, but I wasn't sure it would work.
Wah, wah.
Crickets. That's bad. You know, it's bad when there's
we
absolutely
need a cricket soundboard.
You told us we can't boo. So,
Yeah.
Hey, dudes, what's happening?
more of the cyber stuff.
Yeah.
Always.
This has been a busy couple of weeks in AI and in technology anyway, with the recent conference by OpenAI where they announced all sorts of crazy stuff. And then Microsoft announced a new version of .NET. And crime goes on, and apparently it pays.
But more on that later.
More on that later. Film at 11.
So let's start talking about the people who are supposed to stop the cyber criminals. The cyber skills gap is in the news.
Where are these people anyway?
Okay, so the news is that, and this article doesn't get into that number, but there's supposedly over 750,000 too few cyber professionals for the United States' demand, and over 3 million worldwide. And so this article says it's 3.4 million, I believe. So
now it's not that the jobs aren't available and they're not paying enough.
The opposite. It's that the people aren't available. Right.
Yeah.
So this article and says basically we have to stop waiting for the schools to graduate graduates. And we completely agree. This is not news to us. What he's saying is that most organizations are waiting for new graduates out of cybersecurity programs to help catch up. It'll be a decade before enough people get put through enough systems and enough programs, and then they'll end up with no experience the day they graduate, which makes them technically qualified and totally useless for the most part. You know, nothing against them. It's just that if you don't actually know what the real world looks like, it's tough to protect it. So,
well, hopefully these training things will include real world scenarios, right? I mean, that's the whole idea.
Yeah, but they're taught by academics who also have not been in the real world. And so you end up with a lot of, hey, we're going to do some COBOL programming now. And, we're going to talk about, you know, structures, Java structs, and things like that. So, so what he's advocating, and we definitely are wholeheartedly behind this, is we need to take people who are skilled in other things and move them over into cyber. And honestly, that's a much easier thing to do. We've hired people from, you know, veterans to, mechanics, and we look for people who are problem solvers, who are inquisitive, who are gamers. And we see if they, and then we train them in the areas of technology that they don't know, because a lot of them come to us as programmers or as network engineers or as database people, and we fill in the blanks of the other spheres of influence that they've heard about that they don't know about, and then we give them tons and tons of experience before. But it takes us probably 5 years, Dwayne, before somebody goes from the street to being somebody we could let go and go against one of our customers.
So this is something that you guys actively do.
Oh, yeah.
So if somebody is listening to this and says, hey, I think I could be a cybersecurity expert, should they contact you? I mean, do you filter people out?
They can contact us, and we'll definitely point them in the right direction. We don't have the bandwidth to take on.
You don't have a program.
Yeah, when we need somebody, we talk to people and we bring them in, and I keep
adopting people. But
So let's talk about this. We have some intern programs with some educational institutions.
Yeah.
And we call them interns because they run an internship that we participate in.
Right.
Because the state gets all wonky about internships and what the word means and how the tax implications and stuff.
Okay.
So we're careful with the word intern. But what we'll also do is find people, and you know how the Microsoft has the MVP program and the RD program?
Yeah.
We have something akin to that where we get people and we point them in the right direction. Oh, you should go do this. You should read this. You should take this cert. And if they do, we keep talking to them and say, oh, well, the next thing is maybe to do this. And if they need resources and we have it in the budget, we might, take them under our wing in that case. But everyone in the world wants to do this. So we can't just say, if you want to do this, come. You got to put skin in the game. You got to be willing to really push on your own time. We're not going to pay you to learn on our dime. So it's not one of those panaceas.
Right, sure.
But this is how some of our security engineers who are working on red teams right now came up.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
And Dwayne runs those programs.
All right. Very good. And just a reminder, you can't get security experience by talking to ChatGPT.
No.
Okay. Contrary to popular belief. Okay. So let's move on, shall we?
Okay. Yep.
So who wants this one? Sysaid, 0-day vulnerability exploited by Lace Tempest.
What could go wrong?
Which is a band from Los Angeles, out of the
Right?
Didn't they open for Labyrinth of Pain?
I think they did.
I think they did. Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
So this is a supply chain attack. So Sysaid is a company that helps companies. You might call them a MSP, a managed service provider, but they're an IT service management company, and they have a product called Sysaid that helps them manage their clients. And you install it on your servers, and they manage your servers. And guess what? Hackers got in, and now they're managing your servers.
So wait. First of all, Sysaid is the name of the company and the name of a product?
I think that's the name of it. Maybe I'm wrong. Sysaid's Advisory. Yeah, I think Sysaid is the name of the company, and it's
Sysaid is the name of the company. Yeah, and they have a bunch of different products. Like they have a help desk product.
Yeah.
What they call an ITSM product, server automation, systems automation, asset management, update management. So, very similar.
Actually, I got to break in. They have to be able to add hack automation now.
Right? It's there, right? Automated hacking.
And any company that has SYS in the name is definitely a corporate provider
from the
of
60s.
Services.
Named in the 60s,
Systems
probably.
integrator
Cisco,
of some sort.
Sysaid, Boomba,
So it's and we've seen this before, right? We've seen supply chain style attacks, especially with and there have been actually some really large ones where managed service providers have software that's installed at the highest levels of an organization because they need to manage, they need to run as an administrator. So why target the customer when you can just go to who's managing them?
So Dwayne's hitting on something very important. So the hacker, we normally think nation states, militaries, banks, that's where the hackers are focusing on. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that a lot of these APTs, advanced persistent threats, are spending cubic hours on system providers like this, because if you get in, you don't get one company, you get 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
And so software companies whose software runs on client machines need to take notice of the fact that you're part of the supply chain attack potential.
And what this reminds me of is that whole SolarWinds. You guys remember SolarWinds?
Yeah.
The SolarWinds attack? Yeah, same type of thing, right? SolarWinds was the monitoring software and management software for your servers. So it was up and running in the highest levels of the organization. Gets breached. Everybody who's running it is in trouble. So,
and you get to add that feature, malware distribution.
So did they patch it? What's the story?
So there's a CVE out for it right now. It's 2023 47246.
It's a week old as of this recording.
Yep, it's a week old. If you are running it, there is some mitigation guidance out there right now on how to mitigate it. So we'll have a link up so that you can see how to do that. But more often than not, because Sysaid is managing your servers, you should call them.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, guys, mind taking a look at this and making sure that we're not susceptible to this as well.
Yeah.
You might want to allow a lot of time to get through.
Yeah, I mean, there are some interesting. So there's some interesting what they call IOCs or indicators of compromise, where you can go look for this yourself. You can go if let's say you're using it and you're not sure whether it's fixed or not sure whether you've been breached or not. You can actually go and look for different types of either MFT files they have that attackers are leaving on the system and that sort of stuff.
If you smell something burning, for example. That might,
servers on fire.
And the bad side of this is it's resulting in ransomware. So it's a bad result if you end up getting breached.
So you might already know whether you're susceptible to this if you can't log into your server.
All right, let's talk about what happened down under.
Down under.
Australia says ports operator cyber incident serious.
Yeah.
Serious. What happened?
So this is too bad. We've a lot of operational technology, as well as industrial controls, what they call ICS, industrial control systems, are things that run power grids, water treatment plants, and in this particular case, shipping ports, trains. I think we had talked about it maybe last week. Me and my team actually flew down to DC to crash some trains, which was Are
you allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, I think he did already. Remember we talked about the trains?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I know. It still freaks me out that you talk about that.
That was actually a lot of fun. And actually, what's interesting is U.S. Cyber Command is going to be looking at ports as well. So we saw this one as kind of near and dear to our heart as well, looking at, oh my gosh, what are the risks around ports and that sort of stuff. So, in this particular case, I guess if you were shipping something to or from Australia, you might run into an issue.
Hey, here's a case of didgeridoos and some boomerangs, and there's a whole bunch of kangaroos dancing on top of it. I think that's a sign.
If you remember the shortages of toilet paper we had for a while,
Patrick, this is a laughable moment. Why?
Oh my God, that was so funny.
Come on, take a minute to laugh for Christ's sake.
You were going to get hate mail from all of our Australian friends.
Carl, again, you said we weren't allowed to boo, so I just kept talking.
Oh my God!
Toilet paper, hilarious. Yes, I remember.
Yes.
Toilet paper shortage.
So that's how it's near and dear to our hearts. When the ports are closed, nothing's going in, nothing's going out.
Right.
So if you're not self-sufficient on,
wait, are we still talking about toilet paper?
Hey, this is a serious problem here at the Australian ports.
Nothing goes in, nothing comes out.
I mean, you could still be on that same poopy topic there, Carl.
Anyways, so one of the reasons we chose this story, I don't know how we got to toilet paper and poop talk, but one of the reasons we chose this story is really just kind of highlight industrial control systems and where we see, a lot of not just our nation, but a lot of different nations are having trouble sort of wrangling industrial controls for multiple reasons. One, they're usually running on older software, older systems, right? So, how often are you going to buy that brand new super fast computer that's, fully up to date for a shipping port, right? Not too often. Usually you have that Windows XP that's been running for 35 years and you just keep it under the desk and it's got 4 layers of dust on top of it and just nobody touches it.
Really, there's only one population in the computing world that keeps their stuff upgraded all the time. That's gamers. That's it. Nobody else.
Yeah. But what you see is like in operational technology and industrial controls, a lot of times let's say the shipping cranes or for trains, the switching stations, they're all certified on a particular piece of hardware and they're all certified on a particular operating system. So to get that to be recerted is damn near impossible. So what they do is they just keep it on the old technology. And this is what you see. That old technology then gets breached and you shut down ports or you crash trains or you do whatever. So yeah, it's definitely something that we all need to look at.
So what are they doing about it? Are they updating things? Are they?
Well, they is a big net. So the U.S. is doing exercises like Dwayne was talking about and working to make sure that those systems are secure and are behind multiple layers of things. So the U.S., you don't hear about this in the U.S. very often because the U.S. is working diligently to keep it from happening. Other countries also doing the same thing in some cases, but sometimes they fall behind or the crack gets left open or an insider threat does something. But it's in the news more than you might notice if we weren't calling out to people because the world's a big place and there's a lot of countries and some of them are doing it right and some of them aren't.
So I guess if you want to find what countries are having problems, just look for the ones where the ports are shut down.
That's right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
If you're looking for cybersecurity,
I'm pretty sure in about 3 months, Australia is going to be doing real well in this regard.
It's your standard parade of cockatiels and galahs.
Oh, Carl.
Okay. All right. So we'll keep our eye on that, but there's nothing we can certainly do about that. But if you're in Australia and you're expecting a crate of boomerangs and didgeridoos with kangaroos hopping all over it, you might have to wait a little while.
So much hate mail. Like it's like
I have
Canada.
So many
everybody
friends
thinks
in
it's just
Australia.
maple syrup and bacon. Exactly.
I have so many Australian friends. I doubt they're going to be mad at me.
Nah.
It's the ones that aren't my friends I'm worried about.
Got to keep an eye on.
All right. And on that note, let's take a break. We'll be right back after these very important messages. And we're back. You're listening to Security This Week. I'm Carl Franklin. That's Patrick Hines and Dwayne LaFlotte. And by the way, if you don't want to hear any ads, you can get an ad-free version of this by becoming a Patreon. I think you can go to patreon.securitythisweek.com and sign up. And you get a version there every week that has no ads. And I think it's only $5 a month.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Super cool.
Super cool. All right. So News Bites. What the heck is this?
So this is, we try and do this once a week, where we mention a technology that's used by a large amount of organizations that has just come up with a pretty high CVSS score. And we want to this is our public announcement. There's an issue with a particular piece of software. And this one is the ActiveMQ, Apache ActiveMQ. So MQ stands for message queue. Message queues are used all the time for different services to talk back and forth to each other. I can
explain a queue. Can I explain a queue?
Please. Oh, by all means.
All right. So you're on Amazon.com and you add something to your cart and you order it. You're not going to wait at Amazon.com until they go pick it, ship it, and then send it. And then they say, okay, it's on its way. It's asynchronous. So your order goes in a queue. And somebody on the other end of the queue says, oh, they prints it out and they pick it, or comes into their iPhone or whatever, and they go in the rest, whatever, and pick it. So things are asynchronous. That's why we need queues. And if we didn't have a big queue, and the database was busy when an order was placed, let's say, it would crash and you wouldn't get your plastic Chinese tchotchkes.
Well, I must say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So on that note.
All right. So ActiveMQ vulnerability actively exploited. Okta says breach impacted 134 customers.
Yeah. So if you're running, like how to know if you're affected, users recommended to upgrade both the broker. So there's a broker, which is the central point of communications, and then clients that are communicating with that broker. So update the broker and clients to version 5.15.16 or 5.16.7, 5.17.6, or 5.18.3. And we'll have links to this as well. So there is a patch out. You can upgrade. It will fix this issue. The risk here is if you do have an attacker who knows how to craft a specific message, they can run code on the broker. So they'll be able to actually have remote code execution and run shell commands. So
which is no bueno.
No good.
No bueno.
Yes. So this is a story of GoPatch. If you're using Apache ActiveMQ.
Did I tell you the story of Apache? The name, where it came from? It's not named after the Apache tribe.
Oh.
It was because when Apache is a web server that came out for Unix, Linux, whatever. And because it was so patchy, it's called Apache server because it was always being patched.
Wow.
That's the lore anyway. And I got that from Richard Campbell.
Origin story ever.
I got that from Richard Campbell, so if it's wrong, blame him. But that's what I heard.
Which is a pretty good source usually.
Yeah, he really is.
I like to blame Richard for lots of things, though.
Yeah, sure.
So that's fine.
I blame Richard.com. All right, so go patch. That's the end of it, right?
And on that note, let's talk about Microsoft patches.
Oh, boy. So Microsoft had a big Windows Server October update.
Can we call it a kerfuffle? I think that's a good word.
Yeah, kerfuffles happen, But this one resulted in blue screens and boot failures in Windows Server 2022 virtual machines deployed on VMware ESXi hosts. So if you're not doing that, you're probably okay. But that is
you three people out there that aren't doing that, you're
good. You're good.
Yeah. And interestingly, a lot of people are moving back to VMs from cloud services. That's a trend.
So if you do the VMs right and you have a patch that doesn't allow you to function, which is rare, you should be able to revert and get back going until the patch is patched. But what I don't want people to do, and hopefully they take my advice, is to say, well, I'll just wait a month before I patch from now on.
Yeah.
To see if any. That was the way we used to do it. And you don't have the time. One day, we talked about 1 days in the past. A 1 day exploit is where the hackers see a patch come out and they reverse engineer it. And a week later, if they're technical enough, they have the tool. They have the ability to exploit it. And now you're waiting another month to patch, you're a victim. So it's not worth, I know these stories make us feel like, well, it's not worth patching. It's a bad idea to patch before.
Yeah.
It's not. In spite of this, it still makes sense to patch.
It's like your neighbor that gets into an accident with a seatbelt on and
the seatbelt keeps them from doing something. Yeah.
Well, the seatbelt kills them.
It's 1 out of a million.
Yeah, 1 out of a million. Say, see?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my.
Good point.
All right. So Microsoft fixed this Windows Server problem, but it was, and this story is from November 15th. So I'm not sure exactly how you patch that, but a patch is available, I guess. A temporary workaround, I guess.
Yeah, and I wonder how often it is. Like the note here says the company confirmed an issue, blah blah blah, saying it only affects VMs on VMware ESXi hosts with AMD EPYC physical processors that expose the IOMMU to the guest OS. I don't know if that's a standard.
Oh, and apparently that's a switch. That's a switch that you can toggle off. Expose IOMMU to guest OS. Turn that off.
The IOMMU is the input-output memory unit, something like that, if I remember correctly. So it has to do with direct access to. It has to do with direct access to input-output memory.
All right, probably not a good idea. It'll make it go fast. It'll be convenient, but right, fast. Patrick?
That's right.
Right.
That's not good. Okay, so
but either way, there's a patch.
Yeah. Now comes our public service announcement, the PSA. We're going to do you a favor and talk about the OWASP top 10. What are they and how do we test them?
Got to drop some learning on you.
Drop a little learning before we scare the hell out of you. Go ahead, Dwayne.
So number 1, broken access controls. And we've talked about the OWASP top 10 quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
It's been around. Does anybody know when it was started?
So this is the Open Web Application Security Project, and the top 10 is the top 10 vulnerabilities that are still a threat. And the number 1 is the very number 1, the top one that is most people have a problem with, and number 10 is least.
Right. But I mean, how long has it been around?
It's been a while. I can't remember the date. Yeah, it's been over 10. It's probably close to 20 years. Yeah. I don't think it was around in the early 2000s. Probably mid-2000, first decade of the 2000s, 2005 sounds about right.
And number 3 is still SQL injection.
Right? Oh my God. But don't jump ahead.
I'm sorry.
Number 1, broken access control. So access control is when you're sort of dictating what an authenticated user can do inside of an application. And it's very easy when we start talking about, the user's logged in. So I may have multiple levels of logged in users, from administrators all the way down to guests I may require to log in. And it's really hard sometimes for an application to, once a user's inside the gate, to then determine what they should be able to do. So we see it all the time when we see like, indirect object access, for example. And to break that down, I'm surfing, let's say I'm looking at my user privileges or my user profile. And at the top, it says profile equals ID equals 3,200. And I go, well, what happens if I change it to 3,201? Right. Now I see somebody else's profile. Well, now we have a broken access control. Right. There was some way that you could change the page, manipulate it, hijack a section, change a parameter, input data in a hidden field that gave you access to something you shouldn't. So that's super common. We see that almost on every website we test.
Wow.
That's always there.
Cryptographic failures is number 2. So is this where like people let their keys expire or something like that? How does this happen?
Yeah, absolutely. This is either keys expire or you're using outdated algorithms. Literally, it's funny. There was an application. Who was telling me about this? It was one that we were testing, and looking at, where the encryption used inside of the program was actually a flawed algorithm. And it was the developer. You could tell if you searched for the name of this algorithm, like how to encrypt a certain thing, and I won't say what it is. And there was a Wikipedia page on it. And if you read the first 2 paragraphs, it said, here's how to do it.
Oh, jeez.
And if you read the 3rd paragraph, it said, by the way, the first 2 paragraphs are out of date. Don't do that. Here's the new way to do it. And the developer literally read the first 2 and went, oh, okay, cool. This is how I do it. And then did that. So this happens quite a bit where, cryptographic algorithms are either out of date or are, haven't been updated in a very long time. They're not implemented properly. We've seen this quite a bit. And even sometimes we see it where keys leak. There's no protection around the keys that actually implement cryptography. So that's generally what we see.
I blame Snowden.
I would.
Can we tell that story, Dwayne, about how you were arguing with somebody about cryptography and they referenced an article about cryptography to argue with you?
Oh my God.
Did it prove your point?
Yeah.
Just listen to this.
So I'm sitting there, we're talking to a developer and I was helping them with the crypto on the back end of their application. Because we had done an assessment. We realized that they weren't using crypto. They weren't encrypting the data properly.
And Dwayne had arrived at this as a storage engineer on behalf of a client, not as a security god.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I was like, hey, listen, we're talking about like replicating data and all that other good stuff. And I'm starting to talk to this developer, and the developer's like, no.
Were you driving a brown truck? Did you have a brown uniform and shorts?
Heck yeah.
And short sleeve shirt.
Right.
Clipboard. Oh, no.
Hello.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
So I'm talking to this guy, and he's like, hey, I've implemented this, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, no, that's actually that's not the way that the crypto algorithm is supposed to be used. You're not using it right. And I can't remember the issue. It was around how he was using his initialization vectors. But anyways.
Okay.
And he was like, no, you're absolutely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. He's like, listen, I'm following a tutorial here. I'm literally following this from a cybersecurity expert online who knows cryptography. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Awesome. Let's take a look at the article. And he opens up the article, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. And he's like, you haven't even read the article. And I was like, no, I wrote it. So if you'd like, we could go through what you missed.
Oh,
he was
that's
like,
great.
Scrolls to the top, and he was like, oh, crap. I was like,
wow.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing there. Well played, sir.
You just dropped the mic. And it broke, unfortunately, so it really didn't come off the way you wanted.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, so needless to say, you need to be careful with your crypto. Definitely careful with your crypto. All right, number 3, injection.
Yes.
Carl alluded to this. Injection's been on this list forever. Used to be number 1, so it was knocked down a little bit, but not by much. So, Patrick, what's injection?
Injection is when you get to put something into the system that wasn't intended.
Little Bobby tables.
So it could be a dependency injection that has gone badly. Like maybe I have a system where I accept an object. We talked about this last week, where I have an object and I don't know what kind of object it's going to be, but I've given you facilities to work and you to hand off an object to me. Well, I can do things in the constructor that you didn't anticipate. Am I on the right track?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What you young kids call injection these days?
Yeah, that's a serialization injection.
Yeah. So it's any time that you can
get this though. Earlier this year, a popular plugin used by over 930,000 WordPress websites was found to have PHP object injection flaws.
Well, and of course, awesome. SQL injection is the best one.
Yeah.
Little Bobby tables and all that.
Little Bobby tables, yeah.
I personally like a good object injection.
Yeah, I mean, it's more
depending on the vintage.
More fashionable.
Right, exactly.
It's more fashionable. It actually breaks you out of a lot of boxes because you only get onto the SQL box with SQL injection usually. So SQL injection is when you have SQL commands that are influenced by the input of the user in a way that you didn't anticipate the user being able to completely take them over.
So basically, here's the canonical example. You have an input box on a form for your name and email. And instead of putting in your email address, you put in an end, a semicolon, which ends the SQL query. And then you do like drop table all, drop database or whatever. And if the programmer just reads that string and concatenates it into a command that they send in clear text to the database without parameterizing it or checking it, sanitizing it, then boom, you basically are allowing anybody with knowledge of SQL to use an input as accessing your database directly. And also, the database access has to be done usually as an administrator. So the combination of a stupid programmer using administrator credentials and just concatenating input from text boxes into a string and sending that straight to a database, therein lies your SQL injection attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it.
All right, let's move on to number 4. Yeah.
Number 4, insecure design. Listen, this is a tough one. Developers are constantly pushed to get an application out the door as fast as possible. They're constantly pushed to put as many features in an application as possible. They're constantly pushed with changing timelines and the product owner going, you know what? I don't want it blue. I want red now. And I don't want 10 fields. I want 30 fields. And so I get it. Basically
the the Veruca Salt of administrators.
I want it now.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So I understand. Heck, all three of us were and are developers. We've been on that side of the table. But I can tell you from being on that side of the table and from talking to developers and also being the guy who reverse engineers applications and tears them apart and finds out what developers didn't do right. Developers most of the time are not trained to design an application securely. They're just not.
Right.
That's why code review is a thing by a security engineer.
Right.
And it's why it takes engineers who used to be developers who now understand cybersecurity to do that level of analysis.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Designing an application in a secure way. So you hit on one of these topics. You said, listen, sometimes the website will be communicating with a database as an administrator on the back end. And we see more often than not that the web server is actually talking to the database as a system administrator of the database.
Yeah.
So DBO, owner of everything, can do anything, can turn on any features. And we ask them why, and they go, well, it's because it worked.
Convenient.
Right? I gave them full control of everything and it just worked. And you're like, okay, but now hackers have full control over everything. And there are easier ways, least privilege.
If they get control of your,
Yep. So insecure by design, like I said, I don't fault the web developers and application developers at all. This is really more of a training issue. Yeah, I get it. And regular code review should be done. Code audits should be done by cybersecurity professionals and say, hey, can't do this. This is a bad idea. Go forth and conquer.
Well, it's kind of like having your lawnmower guy try to fix your motorhome. It's possible.
Did you just call all developers the lawnmower guy?
I did.
Wow, that's not cool.
And if you want a good head start to being a secure developer, listen to episode 94, Security Best Practices for Developers, which we did with Jeremy Lickness.
That was excellent. That was great. That was great. So we got to do that kind of thing again soon.
Absolutely. All right, what's number 5, Dwayne?
Number 5, security misconfigurations, which honestly surprises me that this is number 5. Because we have compromised almost every customer we've worked with over a security misconfiguration. And what are misconfigurations is, oops, I had the wrong firewall ports open and I didn't realize it. Oops, I left the default credentials on the printer. Oops, I didn't actually check off the box that said, I want to use HTTPS, not HTTP.
Oops, I barked it again.
Right? So, we talk about this like, security misconfigurations. RTFM, if you had done that, it would have been fine. And really, no, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yes, reading the manual is important, but understanding from an architecture standpoint what the most secure way to implement something is different than just reading the manual and getting it up and running.
And understand in some lists, injection and all the other things we've listed are misconfigurations.
Sure.
Some people would consider those misconfigurations in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So we see this all the time. We see, if you follow the manual to install a thing or configure a thing,
Mm-hmm.
The people who wrote the manual don't necessarily understand how it should be done securely either. So you just want to be careful when you're setting something up. Really understand what every feature does and what's afforded you so that you can then make it most secure. And if you can't, talk to a cybersecurity professional. Right. Get somebody who knows what they're doing. Yep.
Such as you guys.
Such as
Soft sell.
I know, right? Wow.
I know from experience you guys are not cheap. But you know what? Neither is getting hacked.
And always busy.
And always busy. All right, number 6, vulnerable and outdated components.
This is all too easy. So
we talked about that with the MQ stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, that's if it's got a patch for it, it's outdated.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be old. It could be new and outdated.
And it may not even be a part of the core package, right? We talked about this with things like SBOM. Like, remember Log4j? Anybody remember that, right?
Oh,
Log4j was not the thing you bought and the thing you thought you installed, but it was part of a package that you installed. So you really want to be careful with understanding all of the components that make up the thing you've either built or installed. Mm-hmm. And then from there, updating it and making sure that each and every one of those components is not only up to date, but is also has some level of security code review on it. Mm-hmm. Can't tell you how many times we've seen some third-party library that does some sort of awesome jQuery whatever thing, and it's one developer that manages the entire library on GitHub and hasn't updated it in 12 years. You're like, okay, well, why is every package on the planet using this thing when nobody's reviewing it, nobody's updating it, etc.? So, yeah, that's a catch-22. You want to make sure that everything that makes up a piece of software is actually updated and safe.
Well said.
Thank you. I'm off my soapbox now.
All right. So number 7, identification and authentication failures. So now we're not talking about an authentication failure like incorrect password, please try again. We're talking about bad design, like minimum password length. How many times have you gone to a website and you choose a password and it says, oh, that's too many characters? Oh. And I think, what?
Yeah.
What?
Way too often.
Are you kidding me? Too many characters?
How is that a thing? It doesn't make any sense.
That should not be a thing. We used to have to do that because we only, allocated 10 characters in the database when we were using a char character, which wasn't variable. And I get that, but come on. It's 2023.
I know.
Oh, no, that's too many characters. Come on.
Oh, so awesome. Yeah, and complexity is important. Length of password is important. Actually, it's funny. We give lectures on how to crack passwords. And surprisingly, counterintuitively, a 8-character super complex password is actually less secure than a 25-character password that's all lowercase a.
That's funny.
It is. You could have just hold the
hang on a second.
the A button
My
down.
passwords
and
now,
exactly. Now that it's out there, because when you go to crack a password, when you're brute forcing a password, you're checking every character combination. So the longer the password is, the longer it takes to crack.
Right.
But if it's a very short password, even if it's complex, it doesn't matter. Right. So there's a lot of things that are just outdated think. And how these are developed.
Well, okay. There's complex passwords like people substituting 0 for O and 3 for E and blah. And then there's just like gobbledygook that a password manager will create, like random characters. Those can't be easy to crack. I would say even an 8-character password. No? Yeah?
Yeah.
Length is key.
Is saying,
length is key. Length is key.
The king.
Size matters.
Wow. Oh, your password is so big.
Nobody wants it to be complex. I don't even know what to do with it.
We're a well-equipped organization. I'm trying to get us back on track.
Well-equipped. You're a highly endowed organization. We have an endowment, a large endowment.
Yeah, large. We should just
Patrick,
move on to the next
just
one.
Stop talking.
We should just number 8. Number 8.
Oh, this is what happens when we record at the end of the day.
I know, right? Yeah.
Sorry.
It's 8 a.m. next time. 8 a.m. Keep those passwords long, people.
Yeah. Good. He's not even,
Patrick, you want to open number 8?
Done.
No.
Done.
He's like, I don't want to talk to either of you children.
I'm trying to delete my name off the podcast as we speak.
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
Okay, so what else is in that bucket of identification authentication failures?
So lots of times it has to do with how you're verifying that user is still logged into a system. So sometimes it has to do with session tokens, session cookies,
timeouts,
and insecure handling of those. Like if a session cookie, for example, is not as marked as HTTP only, that means JavaScript from another injected JavaScript can actually steal that cookie and then take it, and I can log in as you. So there are different types of ways to manage the session and the authentication for the user that are just classically missed. So,
okay. All right, let's move on. Number 8, software and data integrity failures.
Patrick, this one's all you.
So
I believe in you.
So what this means to me? I feel like Miss America. What does this mean to you?
Tell us. What does this mean to you?
I think that all the children should be. So it's about tamper resistance.
Yeah. Come on. Hey, this is a serious show, guys.
So, for example, I'll give you an example.
Wait. We've had enough silliness. Give us the right answer.
Yeah.
Take it away, Patrick.
Yeah, okay. Patrick.
So software and data integrity failures is when you fail to protect your configuration, your dependencies, things like that. Okay. So if I can get to the files and libraries, the config files, the password files, then you've fumbled on this point. Okay. And that happens all the time. Most people don't, I forget, without releasing too many, any names, we were asked to evaluate products, and we've been asked many times to evaluate products.
Yeah.
And they never give us the source code, but we almost always get the source code because they put the installers in a directory somewhere that they don't protect, and they don't, or they put their configuration files in a directory that we can get to
where the source code is.
They assume, well, no one will look for the key above the door frame. That would never, or under the mat. Heaven forbid.
The rock by the door. Yeah.
We get this stuff, and then we're like, yeah, we noticed in your code you said, and they're like, what? How are you looking at our code? I'm like, well, you made it easy. We just kind of got it.
It's like, have we met? Do you know who we are?
Yeah.
This is what we do.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. So that's what that is when you don't secure the all the doors.
Okay. Like it.
All right. Number 9.
Security logging and monitoring failures. And this can show up in a number of different ways. And we've seen some awesome, spectacular failures. One would be not logging anything. That's a failure, right? You need to know how many times users are logging in incorrectly, et cetera, that sort of stuff. The thing I would like to point out about this is not only logging correctly and logging in the right place, et cetera, but this does not mean super verbose logs that allow the users to see them.
Okay.
Here's why I say that. There are plenty of times the way we break into a system is through what's called log poisoning. I will try and log in as PHP script names as my username. And then view the log to see all the failed logins, and it runs the code. So you want to be very careful how you manage these types of logs. They should be in a secure location. Don't give the user any information about what's going on other than, hey, it appears there's a problem, right? Don't let them know, hey, it appears you have too many ticks in your SQL injection. Do you want to clean that up a little bit? But logging is super important, and we see a lot of people fall down on that.
Yeah. Okay. Don't expose the exception details to your users. That's one that software developers can do. Oh, just write ex.message and stack trace out to the browser.
Well, what I like to tell people is that it doesn't matter how big the walls are and how thick. If you're not paying attention, and when people are trying to burn through them, eventually they'll burn through them.
Right.
All right. Number 10.
Number 10, server-side request forgery, or SSRFs. SSRFs are actually really neat. They're fun. So what an SSRF is...
Okay, Dwayne.
Let's say we have a web server, and that web server, I don't know, allows us to load a profile image.
Okay.
right? So I can log into this web server, and it's a forums site, and I can put my own little profile image up there. So it allows me to either upload a file that's an image from my computer, or I can give it a URL, right? I can point it at a picture on the internet, and it will load it up as my image. Well, what says that's on the internet? What if I try and load up a picture locally? Like I do, you know how we have HTTP : /
file.
Well, I also could have file : / or dict : / or SFTP : / or Gopher : / There's tons of protocols that you can use, and you can request the local computer, the local server. So sometimes there's administrative websites on different ports, like 8080, 1990, that sort of stuff. Locally, you can access them, but the greater web can't. So what I can do is then request this little profile picture page to request 8080 and 9090 locally and see what comes back. See if it says, oh, no, that site doesn't exist or connection refused. And you go, okay, cool. Now I know those ports are there. So SSRF is tricking that web server into making requests on your behalf to a local site you shouldn't get access to. And this is a growing problem. I think this is a new up-and-comer on the list, and I think it's going to go far.
So I know for all the .NET developers out there, Visual Studio, the templates now have SSRF forging kind of
tokens.
Yeah, tokens that you can now pass to your API calls to prove you are who you say you are and that kind of thing. And that kind of thing is just built into the templates.
That can also be bypassed, but we'll talk about that.
Of course it can. All right, shall we get on to the clickbait? I can't believe we finally got here.
I think so.
Let's do it.
So apparently crime pays because there are fraudsters that are making $50,000 a day by spoofing crypto researchers. So this is, spoofing the criminals. This is like calling back the telemarketers and keeping them on the phone for a long time. This is awesome. So tell me what's going on here. One of you guys.
So according to this Bleeping Computer article, to lure potential victims, scammers are uses breach on major cryptocurrency exchange platforms. The scenario urges users to act swiftly. So, and these are the classic hallmarks of a scam, right? We see this all the time in phishing. There's a sense of urgency. Oh my God, you just bought this thing and it's on your credit card. Call us to get a refund or something along those lines. So they're using the same tactics they use against your grandma to get her to call and go buy Bitcoin. But now they're just targeting people on crypto exchanges, which,
So these are crypto researchers. So what are the credentials of these people that are the victims?
So my understanding is that it's people who have either been convinced that their crypto has been stolen or is about to be stolen or they're somehow breached, and they're trying to get help in making sure they can recover their crypto. But in some cases, the hackers are just making up breaches that didn't actually happen.
Well, and if you then trust security researchers, right, or you trust the quote unquote good guys, the guys who know what they're doing,
right?
Then it gives them a lot of access, right? They can be like, oh, you should go here and run this.
Dwayne, I think I got hacked. Can you take a look and, help me recover, this stuff? Yeah, sure. Just give me your wallet ID and I'll take a look at it for you.
I got an executable you can run that'll fix that.
I think that's what it's amounting to.
Yeah. It's like, when you go to a site and, your site is infected with malware, click here to clean it. And it's by clicking that you get infected with malware.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So this is interesting. I don't know if I'm hoping which side wins.
I know it's very. It's one of those Shawshank Redemption's morality issues, right? It's like, wow, geez, I don't know who I should root.
It's like in World War II, the Battle of Kursk.
Yeah, who should I root for?
Deep reference.
Okay. He's referencing the Battle of Kursk. I reference a movie. This is what we do.
Yeah. This is
why it works.
This is who we are.
This is why this stupid podcast keeps going. All right. I think that's about it. We've tortured you long enough, and you've been listening to Security This Week. And tell a friend, and tell your friend's friend, because we need more listeners. Our grandparents are getting tired.
Yeah.
I mean, this was basically a training session on OWASP.
It was.
So you're getting a lot of bang for the no buck.
Exactly. Spread the love. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.